You good?
I'm good.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the November 20th meeting of the Bellingham Select Board. As is our practice, we invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we say the public hearing, I just think it's nice that now that the charter is approved, we are officially the Select Board and no longer the Board of Selectmen, as the case may be. So with that, we'll start with our public hearing. Bellingham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 20th, 2023, 7 p.m. in the Municipal Arcane Meeting Room on the issue of allocating the local tax levy among the different classes of real and personal properties as provided for in Chapter 797 of the Acts of 1979. The Board of Assessors will present the options and impact of adopting different tax rates for residential, open space, and commercial, industrial, and personal properties. And with that, I would ask the board to postpone the start of this public hearing so that we can take care of some other business.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Reason for the delay is we have some gentlemen in the audience that are here for the cemetery committee interviews. Mr. Bodett and Mr. Diaz, will you please join us?
Thank you.
Did I say that right, Diaz or Diaz? So I understand we have a couple openings. We have some gentlemen that are stepping off the board as of December 31st.
Correct.
And we just ask you to introduce yourselves, where you live and how you came to us tonight.
My name is William Bodett. I've been a resident of Bellingham for 29 years. I live on Bellstone Drive in Bellingham. I've been working with Mr. Cartier for about 1.5 years now, 2 years. I'm retired from CBS for 34 years. And I think this would be a good position. I ask a lot of questions, and you know, the few cemeteries that the town owns, I'm always asking Mr. Cartier about this, about that. So when the opening came up, he says, "Hey, you ask a lot of questions. Would you like to be on the committee? You know, go for it." He says, "Yeah, put my name in, and you know, whatever we have to go through, we'll go through, and we'll take it from there."
Well, great. Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Diaz. I've been a resident of Bellingham for about 1.5 years now. But my wife, born and raised in Bellingham, so I have ties to Bellingham for the last 10 years. I have 4 kids, 3 of them in the school system. Again, I have some experience the last 3 or 4 years working with Mr. Cartier as well. He is my father-in-law. So I have experience and some knowledge with the funeral business and cemeteries in general. I'm looking forward to getting involved a little bit more in the community. I'm also the in-town director for Bellingham Soccer. So I'm helping my kids out there and helping the town there, and in any way I can help, I'd like to do that.
Questions from the board?
No.
Mr. Diaz, just out of curiosity, what's a shared service meeting?
So shared services is, so for I work at Sensata Technologies in Attleboro. Shared services is like any role that can be done basically through a centralized department. So we have our credit and tax, our data governance. So those types of things that rather than having specific departments do them, like having a specific accounting department, having specific customer service, those things that can be kind of centralized.
Gotcha.
Fall under shared services. Specifically, I do the data governance, but I fall under shared services with my company.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate that Mr. Cartier's here, and I understand they come with your recommendation as well.
Very question.
Very good. With that, I don't have any questions. I know them for quite a while. With that, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
I oppose none. Well, you will take effect as of January 1st, and before that, Hillary will take care of or direct you to any paperwork for the position.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you for
Murphy.
stepping up.
Okay.
Let the board know I do have them coming into our last closing meeting in December to be introduced publicly that way.
Nice.
And also they'll be present for our final meeting and then we're setting the agenda for our April meeting, which then is a reorganization meeting and also the open meeting.
Yeah, and also understand the budget and everything at that point going forward, because we're accelerating that this year.
Right,
Yeah.
this way they'll have at least one meeting under their belt before they walk in April. And through between December and April, I'll try to give them all the information to get them up to speed to where we are in projects and so forth. That's going on.
Thank you. And we thank you for all your years of service as well.
And Alan Bogan and Jim Hawhey who are stepping down. I think they were on the board for 15 or 20 years. So thanks to
I've
them.
been working now for
Yeah.
about 10, 12 years. Jim was with me for 34 years.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 45. So
And they're both in the warm weather in the winter, so they're happy.
thanks to Mr. Frame, he gave me a box a few years back and asked me to put this together and it's been a project, working project. And for the next group, which these are the beginning of our next group, they're gonna walk in with a much more comfortable environment and knowledge of that we did not have.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm trying to set the board for future. We have a lot of future projects going forward and the youth of today is gonna help carry them forward.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr.
Thank
Murphy.
you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good luck. Have a good night.
Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you.
You.
If I could just read a statement, I guess, that's been provided to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before the tax rate can be set, the select board must hold a public hearing each year to consider the tax rate options available to the town. This hearing is held after the assessors have determined final values and reported this information to the Mass DOR. Purpose of this hearing is to determine the percentage share of the tax levy that each class of property will pay. The CFO, administrative assessor, and board of assessors are here tonight to provide data relevant to this process, so that we can adopt parameters for the fiscal 2024 tax bills. If you'd like to join us, and I understand, Mary, you're zooming in?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, I am zooming in because I anticipated that perhaps our conversation would be shorter than me driving there. But we shall. So I am going to share my screen, and while there we go. While I do that, I'm going to call up the PowerPoint slide deck that I did email out to the board over the weekend.
Hmm.
And hopefully you'll be able to follow along. And let me just get this thing started. There we go. Can everybody see my screen properly?
Yeah.
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 Okay, fantastic. And I see Betsy, and I believe I saw the Board of Assessors also join us in the room this evening. So if we have any questions when we get to that point, I'd be happy to turn it over to the board. But good evening. I'm not sure in terms of the board members, how many of you have sat through a tax classification hearing before. But as Michael said, tonight we need to have the select board vote on a number of items with respect to setting our tax rate for our upcoming tax bills that will be issued in December for a January bill date. So our agenda this evening to go over some data to help inform you to make these decisions. Tonight on our agenda, we're going to talk about our values, the property values in town and the various property classes, and what is happening, what kind of trends are happening within those property classes with respect to valuation. We're also going to talk about new growth. New growth is any new value that is being added to the tax rolls for the very first time, which allows us to increase our tax levy. And there are some interesting things happening with new growth within the town of Bellingham. And then we're going to talk about specifically the shift in order to give you some information to make your decision on whether you want to move the factor that we have had in place for a number of years, either to the left or to the right. And we'll take a look at what the consequences of that are. And then we'll go through the required actions, which are the 5 votes that are listed here to the right-hand side. And as many of you know, with the town of Bellingham, the tax rate classification hearing is a 2-step process. So we will start the public hearing this evening. We will ask for your recommendation. That recommendation will then be submitted to the Department of Revenue, who will then recertify our values. And once that is done, we will have a continuation of our hearing on a different night in order to adopt that factor formally. And then we are able to calculate and set our tax bills from there. So with that being said, well, let's talk a little bit about what is happening with our FY24 values. So when it comes to valuation, there are essentially 4 classes, property classes of valuation across our community: residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. What you see here is a 10-year history of what has been happening with our property values across town. And at the bottom of the chart in light blue, you'll see that I have highlighted the current year, FY24, that we are talking about this evening. I would like to qualify all of my calculations before we go through any of the numbers and let you know that all of these calculations are based upon the current factor of 0.89. And those factors make a difference. So all the calculations that I'm going to go through this evening are based on that particular factor. So what we can see here with respect to our values is that we have seen a very dramatic increase in our residential parcel class at 8.96%. And then across our commercial, industrial, and personal property parcel classes, they have had a cumulative increase of 2.95%, for a total overall parcel valuation increase of 7.18% over the previous year, which sets our total valuation across all properties in town at $3.7 billion. The resulting share or split between residential and business class is 71.5% residential, 28.5% business class, or CIP, commercial, industrial, personal property. With that being said, prior to us getting together, our assessor, Betsy Knoyer, had sent out a memo to all of the select board members. I like saying that. And Betsy is going to walk us through her review of FY24 and what has been happening with the values and her projections for FY25.
Okay, hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be here once again. So as you can see from the handout that I prepared, single family homes are going up 6.5% this year. This is based on the sales that were reviewed, arm's length, that we submitted to the Department of Revenue. Just as a comparison, last year, they went up over almost 12%. The residential condos are going up 13.5%, 2 families, 2.6, 3.5. Vacant land has gone up 4.7%. Commercial, 4.5%. And industrial 2.3. It's important to note that these changes are based on review of sales. So, for example, there might only be 8 or 9 sales of a 3-family, but we might have, 68 sales of condominiums. So that might explain, why these numbers seem a little skewy. But what's really important to note is that this year we had tremendous growth. I was really proud to come up with what we came up with, which is almost 1,465,439 new dollars were added to the tax base for fiscal 24. Now this year, and every year it's different. Some years I'm talking about huge industrial growth. This year I'm talking about industrial growth in the residential sector of over $1 million. What's important to note in this number is that there's only 21 new homes, 100% completed in this number. Curtis is only valued at a percentage. I only picked up a very small portion, and I mean just site work at the Depot Street warehouse, and absolutely no growth was picked up on the new warehouse at the corner of South Maple and Route 140. So what this means is that fiscal 25, I really hope I'm here next year talking about growth of, who knows, 1.8 million. But I'm very, very optimistic. And the reason I am is because we will be looking at a completed warehouse at 152 Depot. We have 206 Mechanic Street, which will be, well underway by June 30th. Here's just an aside, we captured growth through June 30th. Some towns, it's January 1st. Bellingham is an accelerated growth community, so on June 30th, that's where we stop. Bellingham Shores has 103 homes, but only a minor percentage of those homes are included in this tax base. I think I counted about 17 new homes that were in various stages of construction. So what that means is that they're blowing through these phases. We have lots of building permits out. They're going up fast. The sales are happening. So instead of a 4-year build out for Bellingham Shores, I'm hoping that we see a 3-year build out. Bungie Brook, in this figure of 1.465 mil that I have, only, I believe, 8 condos are included, construction included in this figure. What this means is that next year we'll be seeing a big jump in that sector because they're selling these condos right now. They've got 10 sales scheduled by the end of this year, and they're pulling permits heavily. So I'm anticipating some good growth with that. Curtis will be 100% complete. Trimark Warehouse, the personal property for that facility had not hit the tax rolls by the time they were opened up for business. So I think we're going to be in really good shape next year and optimistically for the year after that. The big question mark obviously is Red Mill, which is right behind here. As of this meeting, they have not filed their plan, but they are working quite a bit on the site work. So I'm optimistic something's going to happen with that site. But right now I'm not looking, I don't think I'll be taxing it for fiscal 25. So I'd like to also add that we now have an assistant assessor on our staff, and I think we'll be able to come up with a more, I mean, our value, we strive for 100% quality with our data. And now with the addition of Tara to our staff, I think we'll be able to brag about this next year because we're going after every cent because now we have the personnel to do that. Any questions on anything at all?
All right. Thank you, Betsy.
All right.
All right. Just one thing to note on the new growth. And so I had that slide up while Betsy was talking about our new growth, and you can see the breakdown between residential versus business class. One important thing to note is that our new growth came in at 1.465 million this year, which is higher or greater than a 2.5% increase. So we know that Prop 2.5 limits our ability to increase our tax levy by 2.5%. That 2.5% on the tax levy this year was about 1.2 million. So our new growth came in stronger than our Prop 2.5 would allow us to increase the tax levy. That means, you know, continues to show that Bellingham is a very desirable community for both residential and business development. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about the tax shift. And so I'm going to walk you through this chart, and then I believe in a moment you should have a large sheet of paper in front of you, which is another way of looking at the shift and looking at some specific properties. But let me just start with this one. For those of you who are not familiar with this process, if we look at the left-hand side of the chart here at the top, there are 2 types of tax rates in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. One is a single tax rate, or also known as a uniform tax rate, which means that communities can set one tax rate and apply that tax rate to all parcel classes: residential, commercial, industrial, personal property. So essentially everything is taxed at the same rate. In the town of Bellingham, and the opposite of that would be a split or classified tax rate. In the town of Bellingham, we have a split tax rate. The reason that we have that is that Bellingham has a very, very strong business base, over 30% business base in the community, or 28.5, as you saw in our first chart, I should say. That proportion of businesses in town gives a community an opportunity to shift or more of the tax burden away from residential properties and over to the business class to bear more of the cost of operating the town. So there are a number of communities who have a split tax rate. Those that don't are communities that have very little to no business. So for the town of Bellingham, you have had a split tax rate for many, many, many years, and I can show you the history of that tax rate. But so on the left-hand side would be what would happen if the town had a single or uniform tax rate. Where we are right now is that the town has adopted for the last several years a factor of 0.89, which means that we do not have a uniform tax rate. We have actually shifted more of the tax levy over to the business class, the CIP, commercial, industrial, personal property. What we saw based on the values that have been established and set by our assessor for fiscal 24, that we saw an average single family home value increase to $424,679. Last year's value was $400,505. So highlighted here in gray is the average single family home, and the impact that we're going to talk about is is on the average single family home. If the board tonight were to adopt or reaffirm a factor of 0.89, then the resulting residential tax rate would be $12.84 approximately. Commercial industrial would be $18.49. If you remember, the current tax rate for residential is $13.05, and the current commercial industrial is $20.08. So what we're talking about is a drop in the tax rate. However, at the same time, as Betsy just described, we've had increases across values on all property classes. So the resulting impact from our budget that was passed at fall town meeting and the property values that have been submitted to the Department of Revenue at a factor of 0.89 and a tax rate of $12.84, the average single family tax bill will be $5,453 for fiscal 24. What that means is it is a $226 increase over the previous year on an average single family tax bill. And the benefit of having this tax shift to the average single family tax bill is a benefit of $578 in fiscal 24. Does everybody see that?
Mhm.
Okay, so if we were to shift and widen the gap, shifting more of the burden over to commercial, industrial, personal property, here are some examples of what that might look like. What if we shifted to a 0.88, again, away from residential and over to business, then the average single family tax bill would result in a $5,402, a savings of a little less than $50. Conversely, if we were to go the other way and close the gap, getting more closer to a uniform tax rate, you would see that an average single family tax bill would go up to $5,512. And down here in that chart would be the impact over the previous fiscal year, as well as the savings or the benefit of having this split tax rate. Does anybody have any questions on this chart?
No.
Nope. All right. Okay, so the impact of the tax shift looks like this. And again, I've highlighted 0.89 because that is where we are today, and that's just the basis for the calculations. We can see that we continue to have growth in our average single family. Let me go back here. Average single family tax bills down here. We can see from FY21 to FY24, residential values continue to grow in town. These were the average single family tax bills, and we can see that we have slight growth year over year. If you were to adopt a different factor, these would be the resulting tax rates. Right now, we're talking about 12.84 with commercial at 18.49. So as our residential rate, if we were to change it, as the residential rate gets closer to a uniform tax rate, we can also see that the commercial industrial rate goes in the opposite direction. These would be the resulting shares of residential and commercial split based on the values. So still around a 63% or 64% share of taxes paid by the residential parcel class and 36% share of the tax levy paid by business class. On this particular chart, and this is that large sheet of paper that you have in front of you, if you want to pull that out, what we started doing several years ago is looking at specific real properties here in the town of Bellingham and what the impact would be on businesses as well as residential parcels. This here is a little snippet of that particular chart. So what I've got at the top is I've got a sample large commercial property, I have an industrial property, and then I have several smaller like mom and pop type commercial businesses. And then down below at the bottom, there are several residential parcels. And so this is calculating those actual tax bills and what the impact would be if this board were to adopt a shift in either direction, either widening the gap or closing the gap. And you can see the savings or impact to a particular property. So if I use the first row, I'm just going to explain how to read the chart. At a current factor of 0.89 for this large commercial property, its current value for FY24 is $43 million, slightly over $43 million. At the tax rate using a factor of 0.89, this particular property would have a resulting tax bill of $796,000. This happens to be one of our top 10 taxpayers. The effect of the split, the column just to the right of it, indicates how much of the burden that we have shifted over to the business classes, how much this particular property is absorbing the impact. If we were to split to, if I'm going to go over to the far right-hand column, if we were to adopt a single factor, a uniform tax rate, that means that this particular business's tax bill will go down by $182,000. However, if you were to shift from a 0.89 to a 0.91, closing that gap slightly, then this particular parcel would see a resulting savings of $34,000. And that $34,000 would be shifted over to the residential class to absorb. If you were to move from a 0.89 to a 0.87, in this particular parcel's case, then they would be absorbing an additional $34,874 on their tax bill. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so really what we try to what we've done in the years past is really drilled in on some of those smaller businesses in the middle of that chart, where I believe I have an auto shop and a dental practice and a perhaps a hair salon, because we have a wide variety of businesses here in town. We have some very, very large commercial and industrial properties. And then we have a very strong balance of much smaller commercial family-owned businesses in town. And we cannot pick and choose who shares that burden. So when we talk about shifting the tax rate, we are simply talking about shifting the tax rate from the residential class over to the entire business class. And there are consequences with that. And so we cannot just choose to shift that burden over to the industrial properties and keep the smaller commercial properties as they are. That's not how the shift works. So does everybody see the different examples on that chart?
Yeah.
Are there any questions on that?
Pretty clear.
I'm sorry. Okay.
You said it's pretty
It's
clear.
pretty clear.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. All right. So one of the other things that we always try to take a look at is our top 10 taxpayers and sort of see what's happening with some of our big businesses in town. And the reason that we look at this is because we always want to be concerned where our top concentration is. So these are our top 10 taxpayers for FY24. You can see that we've had some movement in our top 10 over the previous 2 years. We now have Amazon, who has overtaken Trimark, and you can see some of the movement. This is the ranking 1 through 10, and in FY24, Blue Links has dropped off, whereas they had been on the list for the past couple of years. There's a new introduction here this year, which is the Curtis Apartments that Betsy had talked about earlier. Curtis Apartments, we've only captured about 60% of that growth. We anticipate that this number is going to be higher next year, and we should see their movement in this list ratchet up a little bit. One of the things that I want to draw your attention to that we talk about is this concentration. So we have a continuing growth in our concentration of our tax levy being borne by our top 10 taxpayers. Now, in some respects, that's great because they're picking up the lion's share, but in other respects, it presents a form of risk to the community that if we were to lose any one of these businesses or see a significant reduction in their value, what that means is that that tax burden gets shifted to everybody else in town who is a property owner. So we want to keep an eye on the top 10 taxpayers and their concentration of the tax levy that they bear when we make these decisions regarding what kind of a factor we're going to adopt. Any questions?
No.
Okay, all right. So we also take a look at how we're doing against our neighbors in terms of our average single family tax bill, because at the end of the day, everybody who is a property owner in town is going to pay taxes. So we look at this chart every year, which is the 28 communities that make up all of Norfolk County. And it is sorted in order by the average single family tax bill. We always look 1 year back because, as you can imagine, everybody at this time is preparing their tax classification for FY24. The data is not available yet. So using FY23's data, you can see that Bellingham continues to hold that 28th spot in Norfolk County, which means we continue to have the lowest average single family tax bill in all of Norfolk County. In the entire tenure that I was at Bellingham, we looked at this chart, and Bellingham had continued to be the lowest tax burden across the entire county. You'll also see right below it that I have included the state average, and you can see that Bellingham's average single family tax bill is well below, or almost 26% below, the statewide average across the Commonwealth for an average single family tax bill. And well, I didn't do the math. I won't say that, but I will. We'll leave it at that. All right. One of the things we also need to do this evening is to adopt a small business exemption. The maximum percentage that we can allow is 10% under state law, and the town of Bellingham has adopted that 10% for a number of years. And we are going to ask that you reaffirm the adoption of that 10% exemption. What that does is, based on the criteria you see shown on the screen, any small business as categorized by the Department of Employment and Training, which means that they have a commercial value under $1 million and less than 10 full-time equivalent employees. For those businesses that qualify for this exemption, they will receive a 10% reduction on their tax bill, but that 10% does not go away. What happens is that that gets shifted over to our commercial and industrial property class to be absorbed. The average savings, or the estimated savings that we're anticipating for FY24, is for 74 properties who potentially qualify at an estimated tax rate of $18.49, that they will be collectively saving $54,000, and that would be shifted over to the commercial and industrial class.
Question, Mary?
Yes, please.
How long has the DOR had the $1 million cap? It seems like it's been at that for a while.
So the $1 million cap has been in existence since as long as I can remember, but I'm glad that you raised that, because we have had active conversations about this for a number of years. We did a couple of years ago, Dennis and I sat down and submitted language for a modification to the statute, and we submitted it to Senator Fatman and Rep. Soter. I took a look today at the status of that, and the status is that a bill has been filed. I believe it was House Bill 2952. And there was a hearing that was scheduled for September 26th of this year, but we don't know what the results of that hearing are. The language of the amendment that has been submitted is to increase that commercial value threshold from $1 million to $4 million.
Significant.
Can I just jump in?
Please.
I anticipated this question, and I just ran a report. There's 95 commercial properties that are between the range of 1 to 4 mil.
94 additional.
95 additional, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they would meet the criteria of the
Employee
employees.
level.
Yeah.
It was actually 1983 when that million
Yeah.
threshold was established right around the time Proposition 2.5 came in, so. It's been 40 years without an adjustment.
I can send a letter, just a quick, tomorrow to see the status of it. It was heard in September.
Yeah, I think that if they're talking about any amendments to that, I think that the 10 FTEs is also going to be a limitation as well. So we'll see. But it would be nice to have more businesses qualified and eligible for that particular program if they could at least increase the value threshold. Yeah, great. All right. Any questions on any of the charts or data points that we talked about already?
I think it's self-explanatory, Mary. It's very good to read.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, then I'm going to ask you guys to take a couple of votes. Oops, where'd my screen go? There we go.
Can I, just for clarity, I mean, when a homeowner in the area says, they get their tax bill. A few years back, we had Carryville Crossing that had significant jumps in their value. If you're a condominium owner in this town and you're thinking your property tax bill is going to be going up a normal amount, it's going to spike given the valuations of condominiums versus two-family houses,
Mhm.
as
Yes.
I read this. And that the commercial levels are going to be more consistent. And that
Yeah.
residential will be slightly more. So if people think that their property tax values are going up 2.5%, some are going to see 3.1 and others might see 5 or more just because of the type of unit that they have.
That is correct.
And then your office is going to deal with that.
And it's all driven
Well-
by sales.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's based on averages, so. Like I said, we've got condos that are really duplexes that are converted, and then we've got some of the upscale condominiums up at Hartford Village, the newer section. Pine Hollows, Countryside, so that figure, that's an average.
so if a unit like Bungay Brook that is condominium style is selling and we have more new homes, that's impacting the houses that are right behind Tony, the condos behind Corey. Right? What's
Okay.
Bellwood?
Like Bellwood.
Bellwood.
Has such a diverse group anyways.
every-
We're all different up there.
There's no condominium complex in this town that I'm assessing lower than what they could get for a sale.
Mhm.
It's, it seems to be very desirable from a property ownership right now, based on the numbers that I'm seeing. Yeah, I'm surprised actually, when I see the deeds, it's shocking in some respects. We're still seeing robust sales. I monitor them every morning, and most of the sales I'm seeing still are over ask. Although the supply is diminished because of the mortgage rates and such, but we're still in good shape. And,
All too often, people think of the rate per thousand as the be all and end all, and that effectively is going to go down.
when people come in, the rate will go down, stuff, your value, your taxes still go up. But generally, we don't have a lot of kickback at our counter. Most of the time when somebody comes in and they're upset, it's because their water, sewer, trash has been leaned into their bill. It's not their tax increase. And we're usually able to, effectively deal with that at the counter, and we've taken measures this year with the treasurer's office to avoid that by reaching out to get the liens paid prior to not have that sticker shock on the tax bill.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. If we have no further questions, then I believe Hillary has some motions in front of you. Is that correct, Hillary?
Yeah, I can find them.
Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to adopt a residential factor. My recommendation is to retain the existing factor, but it is up to the board on whether you want to shift it to the left or to the right. Currently, you're at 0.89.
I think we should just leave it as is. I think the 0.89 is fine.
Yeah.
I don't think we should go either way. I think we should just, for this year, leave it as is. That's my own
I
opinion.
agree.
Okay.
And just the one thing, to highlight what you just said. It's obviously, the tax rate is driven by the property values. Just to make sure clarify with the citizens, because probably we're gonna get some questions. And then, of course, the social media factor too. And make sure people there understand, we are not increasing the taxes. The current market values are basically the driving all the current values and then where we need to go with.
Yeah, 189.
Yeah.
Yes.
The arm's length sales.
Yep.
I mean, I'm gonna stick with it, keep everything the same. I see
Yeah.
everything the same. I would like to, go down, but I think what that's gonna do is one of the charts I saw properly. We lost 6 small businesses between last year and this year, if the chart's correct. And I think, although the big businesses are paying I think the big businesses need to pay more. I don't want to crush the small mom and pop businesses, so I think we just keep everything the same. And
Well, Having talked to Dennis, I think if the CIP base had gone up, we could consider something to the alternative, but they're not in line.
yeah,
Can I just clarify one point? I'm sorry. I just want to clarify, Mr. Hennessy, you just talked about losing 6 businesses. But I just want to be clear that we don't know that we lost
right.
6 businesses. What happened is that the number that are eligible has
Right.
decreased by 6, which means that those 6 businesses could be growing and that their value is in excess of $1 million, or that they have more than 10 full-time employees.
Right.
It may be flourishing businesses in town.
Right, no, I saw the number of 6 and I was just kind of, yeah, you're right, that's my fault.
Perfect.
So if I could, I'll entertain a motion to adopt a residential factor of an unchanged residential factor of 0.89.
So moved.
Second.
First and second. Assuming no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, 4-0.
Excellent. Thank you. The next one is to adopt a 10% small business exemption.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of a small business exemption of 10% say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, 4-0.
Excellent. The third item is to adopt the amount for the exempt debt, which was a memo that was issued to the board yesterday, and that amount is $700,000.
Do we need to have that exact in the motion or just adopt exempt debt?
I'll put the exact in the.
The amount needs to be in the motion that gets submitted to the Department of Revenue.
Good.
I'll make a motion to adopt the amount for exempt debt at $700,000.
Second.
First and seconded, assuming no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, 4-0.
Okay, fourth one is to affirm that we do not offer a residential exemption. Residential exemptions are typically used for communities that have a lot of owner-occupied rental properties. Think the city of Boston, city of Cambridge, town of Brookline, where there's a lot of rental properties serving a lot of the colleges, and it's an incentive to make sure that we have that a community has owner-occupied rental properties so that they are taking a vested interest in maintaining those properties. That's not the characteristic of Bellingham, so I am asking you to affirm that we do not offer a residential exemption.
So moved.
Second.
First and seconded, any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, 4-0.
Excellent. And the last order of business is to not close, but to continue the public hearing. And Hillary, do you have the exact date and time?
Did you say November 28th?
Yeah, is there any,
Noon
I
instead
can
of
do
5
it.
p.m.
You can or cannot?
I can do noon.
And you could do it on Zoom, right? At noon? Do you think it's a Tuesday?
The reason I am on a plane at 4
I
o'clock.
can't, hold on.
I have no conflicts.
Or
Could be wherever.
if you have.
Well, we
to
could
go-
do
if you
3,
go earlier,
we could do 3 at noon. I don't know if Mary can, does Mary need to be on it?
I can make it work.
You can?
Mary, does noon work?
I think I can make noon work.
On the 28th.
On the 28th, correct?
As long as it's.
Correct.
Yeah.
28, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we need to make a motion to continue the hearing till Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 at 12 noon.
So moved.
First and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. There you go, Mary.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Hold on one second, Mary. While you're here, do you mind if we do the pilot agreement? Because that has to
Oh,
be
yeah,
executed as part of the whole thing. Mary, you said. As you know, the plant on Depot Street owned by Florida Power and Light, the payment lieu of tax agreement came up June 30th of this past year. The town hired a tax consultant that specializes in the appraisal of power generating plants, and they came in with a value that actually was considerably lower, our consultant, than the value we had assessed at. We didn't have it assessed, but what it would have been assessed at if it were on the tax rolls as opposed to a payment lieu of tax agreement. We were able to negotiate an agreement that I think is very favorable. Their tax bill, as Mary had it actually on the one of those slides she showed that it was going from 1.1 million to $900,000 this year. Next year it'll be 800, 700, 600, and 500 thousand dollars, and that reflects the fact that the plant is in fact 33 years old. It's only run on its standby basis. So essentially, the utility companies pay the plant to be ready to run in the event that there's an emergency, a blackout, or high demand. So I think it's based on the assessment or the evaluation that the consultant did. We're very confident with these numbers and what they've come in with. Betsy, anything to add to that?
No, I'm just relieved that we were able to come up with a number that we found suitable and that we could live with.
We were concerned that was going to drop more like to 500,000 or 400,000. So 900,000 is a solid number. And when Betsy and I had a conversation with the tax rep at Florida Power and Light, and they were agreeable, recognizing the impact that it has on the community and the fact that it's one of our top taxpayers to basically work with us on that. So, Mary, anything on that?
no, I think you've covered it all. I think I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I would say I appreciate the agreement you worked out because laddering it down is much more favorable than taking the hit.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
it's a plant that most likely will be offline, could be potentially offline. They're saying in the next 10 years, they have contracts through the next 5, which is why we were able to get
Yeah.
agreed upon.
To that point, Dennis, you know, our conversations with them, we looked at their asset portfolio, and this is one of the few remaining plants that they do hold in their portfolio that is of the style that it is. They're moving to much more renewable energies and looking to phase down these plants that they still manage to hold across the country. So this was definitely a favorable result for the town of Bellingham.
They may choose at some point to retrofit the entire property.
In which case we capture all that. The agreement says that it's the value is of the pilot payment is based on the plant as it exists right now. If they do upgrades, then we can capture that as new growth. So it does require a vote of the board to enter into that agreement. It's something that Mary needs to finalize the submittal to DOR.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the pilot program as negotiated.
So moved.
Second.
First and seconded. Any further discussion here? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, 4-0.
I need you to sign that, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Well
Yeah,
done.
you got it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well said. See you next year. Thank you, Beth.
Just a quick question, Julie, is the vacant land increases as a result of Barney selling their land?
It's not exactly. A lot of it has to do with just the raw lot sales. You know, it's staggering numbers for large tracts and equally so for somebody who just wants to buy a piece of land to build on. So it's across the board.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you for all your
you,
hard work.
assessors.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Hey, we are back on our agenda, and at 7:30, we were to talk about bid award, DPW Office Depot Street Contract 2023. Jesse, Roland, would you like to join us? Sure. Feel like I just saw you, Roland. It
It's on a Saturday, wasn't it?
Okay, what do you have for us today?
Okay, if you'd like, I can read through what we have in front of us. So essentially, we are looking to award the construction for new DPW offices on Depot Street. The ad hoc committee that was formed for this project has worked diligently since its formation in early 2022. The committee reviewed space needs for the DPW director at the time, Donald DiMartino, assistant DPW director, myself, and staff. The object was to relocate the new DPW site on Depot Street and improve administrative spaces. Improvements in the way of establishing better internal flow of the workspace include an adequate conference room, adequately sized private offices for the director and assistant, modern workstations for the administrative staff, and workstations for the foreman with better access to the DPW work staff. Through the assistance of Nancy McDermott, facilities manager / real estate services of Marsh McLennan, the town was able to procure used workstations and other furniture from a closing office. The town had a choice of workstations and furniture and was able to pick those in good condition. These were at no cost other than pickup and transport. The committee developed a basic floor plan. This plan became part of an RFP for architectural design services. The committee interviewed candidate forms and selected a design architect. The architect has worked with the committee and developed a floor plan that accommodates needs of the DPW, including a modest growth in staff. The building will be metal clad building with standard shingle roof. This is limited, there is limited basement storage, and this area will include the minimums. Below is the floor plan and overview of the building. This next page, you can get an idea of what the layout of the building and the rendering of what the finished product will look like on the outside. The project has been bid on and favorable bids have been received. So the low bidder has been vetted through the DCAM process and references have been contacted with favorable results. The low bid is $2.253 million. This is slightly higher than the architect's estimate of 1.930, but within a reasonable tolerance. The project finances are listed below. These can actually be seen on the next page. Project finances. The town, through the town meeting process, has made several appropriations for this project. These appropriations include planning, design, additional property, and construction. The chart below lists the appropriation amounts and the summary of actual and likely expenditures therefrom. A review of these values indicates that a potential shortfall of $91,515 is possible. This is unlikely, however, as the proposed construction contingency of $225,300 is unlikely to occur, and the amount of shortfall may be reduced or eliminated by the unspent amount of the contingency. Additionally, the construction of this building will take approximately 1 year, allowing the town to monitor the progress and costs and take any needed action. The DPW Administration Building Committee therefore recommends that the Select Board enter into a contract with Construction Dynamics Inc. of Clinton, Mass. for the construction of the DPW Administrative Building.
I think you and I spoke about costs, and maybe it was Joe Calamati and I that spoke about cost. Anything that surprised you when this finally came to?
No, the fact that the actual bid price came in about 16% higher in this bidding environment is not a big shock. I would like it to have been a little bit closer. One of the things is I think we had 5 bidders, and between the low bid and the high bid was something like just a few $1,000s. It was very tight, which kind of indicates to us that the plan set is good and the bidding process was solid. So we feel pretty comfortable with it.
You did a great job.
Awesome.
Any other questions on the board?
No, I've done a lot of reading. Jesse's kept me up to
When would construction theoretically start?
This year, yeah.
This
That's
year?
one of the reasons why we're
Twenty
trying to get,
twenty-three?
yeah, so I was trying to get this done right
Go.
now.
All right. Entertain a motion to approve W Office Depot contract 2023-DODS.
Second.
First and seconded, any further discussions? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none.
Thank you.
Year from now, we'll have a new DPW building to,
What's that?
a year from now, we'll have a new DPW
We
building
should.
for next winter.
We should. If we're really lucky, they'll get the foundations in right now.
Yeah.
And then they'll be able to work all of it.
It's a
Nice.
shovel-ready lot, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you for all your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jesse, you're gonna do the next.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want me to stay up here for the next?
Is he on?
Just have to,
Old Reed.
Old Bridge Main Sewer Station upgrade.
you don't have to probably read it, Jesse, we can just pull it out from here.
Yeah.
All right.
That one I just thought was worth reading, because we've been. I get to say it's a bigger deal than the other things.
Yeah, long time coming.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract 2023 OBSU Old Ridge Sewer Upgrades be awarded for the low bidder, RH White and Co. of Auburn, Mass. And for the public listening in, they bid $444,100, which was $25,000 lower than the second bidder and about 80-odd thousand lower than the third bidder.
Second.
Who made the first?
Me, I guess.
Okay.
Any questions,
No.
discussions, timing on this, Jesse?
So we hope to award immediately. They would basically place the order for the materials and, look to move forward with construction to follow. So it really depends on, the availability, but we would anticipate springtime.
Okay, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, for,
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jeff.
Have a
we
good night.
already talked about the
Thanksgiving.
pilot
Thanks,
extension.
Jesse.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Heidi. Good to see you.
Thanksgiving.
Nice seeing you.
Yeah, thank you.
When's the start date? Heidi,
Heidi.
when do you start with us? Do you have a start date?
We're still
Working on it.
talking
We're still
about.
working on
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Dennis, discussion about the MBTA Communities Committee.
I gave you some additional information. I know, Lily had put some information in there as well, but essentially what we had planned to do was put this committee together in January, start meeting in January. Identify parcels, 50 acres is what is required under the legislation. Parcels don't have to be contiguous, minimum 5 acres. We talked all about this. And we want to be in a position to present the recommendations to town meeting in November, at the November town meeting. So it's a committee that planning board really is taking the lead on, but the select board is the one that requested it be put together. So it looking for a member of this board to sit on that committee and
When
get going with it.
we do a pre-board meeting, you expressed interest in doing that.
Yeah.
What is the makeup of the whole committee?
We talked about it last year and we're looking at having the zoning board member, planning board member. So if you recall, I know the planning board is taking the lead, so they're reaching out.
One be Board of Selectmen, zoning, planning, maybe conservation,
I think it was
conservation.
Conservation
Yeah.
and yeah, as I say, it's been a year, this board really
Yeah.
initiated the discussion. But the planning board is taking the lead on it, and that's what the select board had asked at the time, since they're the ones that, oversee land use.
There's no objections, to represent us.
Okay, if anybody,
You can have it.
okay.
I mean, if it would expand, I just have a terrible curiosity of the whole process, so.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
can attend, it's gonna be open,
Yeah.
all the meetings
Yeah.
will be open discussion,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, one of the things that we're reaching out to are property owners that have expressed an interest. I know
Yeah.
we've had a number of property owners that have expressed an interest in having their parcels considered this for this and maybe parcels that.
Yeah, obviously,
Makes sense.
the sewer capacity consideration of
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
the
it
south end
is.
of town that we learned
Yeah,
about.
we don't have sewer capacity, so north, we have a lot of sewer capacity in the south. So if someone was gonna do something up north, they'd have to look at some sort of a treatment plant,
Okay.
on-site treatment plant.
And then I was reading some of the details from the prior meetings. It's gonna be 15 units per acre, right?
15 units per
crazy-
acre, 50 acres, 750
That's just-
units.
I don't like this at all.
It's
Yeah,
not,
it's-
it's not a choice, it's some, well, it is a choice, we could say no, but it would limit our ability to pursue grants, and there are other things. The governor came out very strongly because
Yeah.
there were a couple of communities that basically said, you know what? We're not gonna do it, we don't want your grant money, and then the governor came down and said, it's not that simple. There is legislation in place that requires it, and there could be other penalties as well, so. We need to go through the process and take a hard look at where the least impactful development might be. And also what type of mitigation would be associated with it,
Yeah.
what type of housing. It cannot be 55 and older, it cannot be limited to affordable housing. They're looking for it to be housing that's open to the general population.
Yeah,
Yeah, anybody.
but I mean, the acre, I know just that, that's
Yeah.
what they.
It's apartments.
Yeah, apartments, and then it's gonna be a lot of congestion, obviously, I think a lot of towns and. They expressed that, so if I recall,
Yeah.
when they came up with this idea. I mean, 15 units per acre, that's
That's a lot.
a lot,
It's
especially.
How
I
does
mean,
that compare to, sorry,
Yeah.
how does that compare to like Curtis?
Actually, Curtis, is right about where it would be. I could get the time, because I asked him that question. It's very close.
Yeah,
And Curtis, of course, is only 250 units, so it's Curtis times 3.
I'm not,
Oh,
I am on the inside with this.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna put an extreme strain on our public safety.
Yeah.
And I mean, our public safety is already running at below staffing levels.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with it.
Yeah.
Neither am I at all.
It's nothing that I think any of us want. It's a matter of what the state comes out with and as far as penalties go.
Right, I'd like to see what
Sure.
I'd like to see what the penalties are.
And I think that's one of the things that we need to take a look at and be prepared when we go to town meeting.
You know, Chief Fitzgerald, I talked to him about this, one of his main concerns is an interpreter.
Yeah.
You know, we do, the interpreting services, there is no, Haitian, if it comes to a Haitian Creole interpreter anywhere around us. The fire department, I mean, we have 2 rescues. I mean, I listen to the scanner, how often is the rescue going to the Curtis?
All the time. Yeah.
So.
I shouldn't say all the time. They average about 11 runs a day total.
That's a.
Not to the Curtis. I'm just saying they
Yeah,
average.
but that's-
about- I think the chief was just saying, yeah, no,
It's still a lot.
of activity.
This would be,
Yeah.
and the mitigation, just to say, if the state is gonna say, oh, well, we're gonna mitigate.
No.
Well, to me,
yeah.
mitigation is, well, then you're building me a brand new,
No, the state's,
everything.
the state's not mitigating anything. Any mitigation we
So-
have hope we're getting is from the developers.
right,
Right.
Right, I mean, unless the state's gonna give us the funding to open up Station 3.
Yeah.
exactly.
Or give us a brand new headquarters.
Yeah.
For the fire department.
Yeah.
Or fund this DPW.
It's something that we have to make
Very
a good
scary.
faith effort to at least
We-
put forward. And that's what we need to do, and town meeting ultimately will make the decision.
Yeah.
You have to have the land.
Yeah.
I mean, a development like that would bring in millions, but it would be spent right away. It's not like it's a boon to the town.
Could it,
Yeah, it's not-
could it be voted down by the voters
Sure could.
for the zoning? And
Yeah.
then what? Then you tell the state we tried and it didn't work?
No, it's not that simple,
Oh.
because we certainly, right away, we
Yeah.
would not be eligible to pursue most grant funding, but you could say,
Even
well,
if we try?
yeah, there are communities, and I'll pull some of the articles and I'll send them to you, what the governor's response was. To communities that basically said, we're not gonna do it, we don't care, you can grant. And the governor came out with some very strongly worded comments with the attorney general relative to the fact that it is a law and there will be other penalties, but we haven't seen what that is yet. One of the things that we've done in Bellingham is, and I put it in my report, we're one of just 93 communities in the state. This was the designation that we received back January, February timeframe. We're designated as a housing choice community. And that's a reflection of the fact that we're at our 40B, so we've done what we need to do as far as affordable housing goes. And we have added a tremendous number of new housing over the last 5 years. They take a look at a 5-year window, and essentially what they came up with. And I'm gonna approximate it. The 95 communities that are housing choice communities have produced about 80% of all of the new housing in Massachusetts. So,
Yeah.
you know, what the state has done is said, thank you to those communities like ours. Not that we did it, you know, out of the goodness of our heart. We had developers that had the land, and they came forward with projects. But essentially what the state does is say, okay, towns like Bellingham, you're a housing choice community, you're now eligible for all this grant funding, which we've received. It's nothing that we did because we had to do it. It's something that we did because developers came before the planning board and had plans that met whatever requirements the town has, and they were able to build. So we've added a lot of housing over the last 5 years. To dump this on top of it is not recognizing what we've done.
No, it's not.
That's not really fair, because I mean, like you said, I mean, all that housing we're about to add. I mean, we just listen to reports, what's gonna be coming next year, and this doesn't even include. And what we have to deal with. And I think, you know, just, we basically went from 0 to 60 in like, you know. In 2 seconds.
We're not credited for the good
Get
work.
credited for the good work we did, yeah.
When was the last time the governor or even Senator Roush in Bellingham?
Yeah, you know,
The
I
governor, I.
was gone for 2 months, but
I know.
You were here for 35 years.
yeah.
And you've been here for
You know,
20 some odd
governors
years.
have come,
Fair,
yeah.
but not a lot.
Yeah, Governor Healy hasn't been here. and-
No.
Well, I mean,
and,
Governor Haley,
Nice to invite her down to show all the housing.
and
that we
when
have.
is Senator Roush been here?
Yeah.
She was here actually,
She was
not
the
on the
comment.
fence.
She did a meet and greet on the common.
Right,
Yeah, she was a
The meeting
speaker
is
today.
common, but when has she, I mean,
Yeah, the last,
Rep Soder has been here. When
Yeah.
has,
the last significance we had was, Karen Polito came when we were doing the,
Yeah.
tip
I'll
project.
say the Baker Polito, administration.
We're here a lot, Mike did a nice job there.
Baker and Polito were very good.
right, but Governor Haley?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
seen Governor Healy yet.
So, I mean, my thoughts on this is, if Governor Healy wants us to. I mean, granted, we have to follow the law and make a good faith effort. If Governor Healy wants this and wants to level threats, Governor Healy can come down and see it for herself.
Yeah.
Come talk to our residents.
Come talk to our residents, come talk to us.
I like the idea, come on, the residents.
Come talk to our residents. Our
Yeah,
residents
Because
will
when you,
be
yeah,
absolutely over the moon over this one.
yeah, when you think
Totally.
Oh,
about,
they'll be totally thrilled.
when you think about the Curtis, 260 units, and that's an affordable housing facility. The 160 that are going out behind us,
Yeah.
Bungay Brook,
Yeah.
the 200 that are located off of Center Cross and,
Bellingham Shores?
yeah,
Yeah.
Bellingham Shores and Lakeview Estates. I mean, that's a lot of
That's
housing
Just
in
to
a
go
very
to
short period of
come to
time.
Bellingham at rush hour, or leave Bellingham during rush hour. I can speak to myself, coming even today.
Yeah.
Three rounds at the light at Maple Street off of
Yeah.
140.
Yeah.
That light went green 3 times. The line was all the way back. to
Some of the
first-
traffic today was because they were avoiding the Center Street by the VFW.
Well, yeah, that,
Which is
but,
so nice.
but that was coming off of 495 though.
Right.
That'll be a real joy to get to.
You know, and then the south end of town, I mean, again, it's three rounds for me to go get gas to
Yeah.
turn on the Pulaski Boulevard from Payne Street.
You gotta go back and get more gas.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
Good
I went to Irving and then I went to Irving.
Like that through there.
But so, my point is, we've done a lot as far as housing goes.
Right.
We've got this on our plate, we know we need to go through the process, and we will, and, you know, we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand by my stance.
Yeah.
She can come talk to our residents.
But I think it's important that we do monitor this really,
Oh,
really
yeah,
closely,
absolutely.
absolutely, and so on
Yeah,
that, I think that as much as you're gonna go, I think that any one of us will
Oh,
go
yeah.
to all these meetings and we can
Mis-
get to.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can we send a letter to the governor's office?
Actually,
Can we send an open
Expressing our
invitation?
concern.
Yeah, sure.
actually, we did send a letter under, the chairman's, if you remember,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
even signed the letter that I had drafted, because there was an article that came out. And there were some comments that were made in our housing production policy, talking about the housing that we have created. And we were criticized amongst a few other towns
Globe?
by, no, yeah, it was in the Globe.
Yeah.
It was by State House News, and we went back with a letter to the governor,
Yeah.
basically saying, hey,
Yeah.
this is all that we've done. and here we are getting criticized. Yeah, but it wouldn't hurt to do another lab.
Mr. Chair, can I put a motion to send a letter, like, an open invitation to Governor Haley to come to a town meeting? Or not to
Great
time,
form.
to come to a,
Probably in line with the kickoff of the
Yeah,
MBTA committee.
Right.
Yeah.
To talk
That'd be
about,
I make a motion.
yeah, we're doing what we're asked to doing, however, you know.
We've gone above and
Expressing
beyond.
our
I feel like
concerns.
we're almost being penalized for
Yes.
doing the good things we've done,
Yeah, we should have done nothing and just.
And hit it right on the head.
really.
So motion on the table.
Yeah,
For a
I
second.
just,
Any
so
further
mention,
I think.
seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Drafting of that memo, Dennis?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
something
yeah,
up you right up your alley?
That's awesome.
So the opening meeting of the MBTA community.
An
meeting?
invitation that falls in line with the start of the
Can
MBTA
we
committee.
can we do a press release on that too?
A what?
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly put it out there to the papers that, yeah.
Basically, I mean, we've done so much in good faith, and like Ann said, we're being punished.
But that's the way I looked at this whole thing when I was first found out. I said, I feel like we're being penalized for doing all the right things. And we've already, I think, overdone the housing.
Would be
thing.
very much in line with as a follow-up to our letter of such and such.
Yeah.
Attach it.
And if we
Would like
do a
to.
press release with it, it might get her attention.
I agree.
Good idea. Moving on, vote on the October 30th, 2023 minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the
I second.
October 30th, 2023 minutes.
Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. We have some executive session minutes.
Yep.
Approval and ready to release. So this is prior approval of the April 11th and May 1st, 2023 minutes. Each member of the board has reviewed and initialed those minutes.
I'm initialing these, right?
Okay,
So we're just gonna break these down because there's prior approval and ready to release
yes,
and then.
I will attach that list to my minutes for this meeting tonight.
So I'll,
And the ones that are still not being released,
2018 and the 2020.
yeah, I have them in that folder, and there was, I do have an email from our town council why he didn't feel we should release them.
Okay. So, doing this as two parts and then the third statement, so, release prior approved minutes from April 11th, 2023 and May 1st, 2023.
Second.
Okay, first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Approve and release June 26th and July 17th of 2023.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, none. And just for the record, we have outstanding March 19th, 2018 and July 13th, 2020 executive session minutes that have been approved, but are still not ready to release on the advice of council. That's not a motion, that's just a statement.
Yeah, and that catches us up to all of our executive session.
Old business. New business.
I just want to go on the record, just Dennis, it's very comforting for me being the newest member here on the board. Having you here.
Thank you. I
It's,
appreciate
it's,
that.
you know, I mean, Beth did a wonderful job. You are the voice of reason in my opinion, for this town.
Thank you.
And having you here at this meeting is very comforting, me being the newest member.
I appreciate that.
I think to follow up on that, one of our votes that we approved was to take no action on the town administrator search. So at some point, I think it would be appropriate for us individually to speak with you as to timeframes
And what's.
and mechanisms
Yeah.
and
I-
collectively come back at a date. We have a lot on our plate to get through the budget.
Right.
And these are a little tough.
Yep.
Beth is on the Zoom, and I'm not gonna ask you to jump in, but Beth, thank you again for all your work during Dennis's absence.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
Any other new business? I would just add one thing. I had a follow-up discussion with the Charles River Watershed Association
Mhm.
The original intent was to garner more information on the Maplegate property as it abuts the Charles River watershed. They had some information on the Community Preservation Act. Familiar with the Community Preservation Act? So I had a conversation with Dennis, and obviously with the 0.89 split, it's not the right time to do the CPA. But should we down the road wish to adopt the CPA, the tax mechanism is a great way to implement it by shifting it favorably to the residents and potentially adding a 1% CPA that could be used for projects in the community.
And getting grant, not grant funds, but money from the registry. Essentially what the registry does if you adopt the CPA is they give you back the sales tax or a portion of it in fees that are paid to the registry back to the community. So the catch is you've got to adopt the CPA and have a tax increase on residents, and that's why boards have held off on that in the past.
Yeah.
But, you know, you raise taxes by 1%, you get that money from the registry, you broaden the, as Michael had said, you broaden the, you know, the split a little bit, and it eases the burden on the residents.
Because there's the potential that if you move, if you were to ever, just for background, if you were to move the split from 0.89 to say like a 0.88 or even a 0.87, and you can go in between 0.875, you could make it a neutral impact and shift the bulk of that tax towards the large commercial base.
You want to see what the numbers look like,
Yeah,
but yeah.
but anyways, they were gonna provide some relevant information and
Yeah.
I liken it a lot to the MSBA on building schools, that
Right.
you're getting money back to do projects in the town, be it historical initiatives, open space initiatives, land purchases.
Midway did Chow Park. If you've been to Chow
Right.
Park,
Yeah.
the facility they have there, they use those funds to do that. Franklin's used it to put in some of their turf deals. I mean, that's what communities
Yeah.
do, some of those things, the open space project and the purchase of open
Yes,
space.
I only put it out there to say that
Something to think about, yeah.
I'm making note that the meeting occurred in November of 2023, that no action would occur, you know, till
Right.
2025, because you would have to put it on town meeting and take a vote on it.
Right.
Cause it's so funny after, about the CPA, and then, I was having a conversation with Hannah.
Yeah.
And downstairs, and then, she actually was questioned. How come, we didn't implement it yet, and being it's just so great program, and for the town of Bellingham particularly. So she was asking me that question, and then I said, it's so funny, actually, probably, you know, we kind of discussing it.
Well, there's pros and cons to it too.
Yeah.
I think you have to be very careful with the CPA.
Yeah.
And I've had read about communities who have done it and then have turned around and gotten out of it because it had caused such a negative
Yeah.
impact. So I would be very careful before I jump into it.
A little late.
Tim, how you feeling?
Hey, Tim.
Hi, how you doing?
You doing good? You doing good, Tim?
Yeah, I'm getting better. Yep.
Good to hear.
Yeah, I was a
Thank you.
little offended. I came back and Tim left. Take it personally. Yeah.
He's coming back a lot sooner than you were. Town administrators report.
Wait, I had
Oh.
one quick thing. So I know I've talked to a few of you about the license renewals coming up next month, and, if Sandy's is gonna be on the list, I was wondering if if you wanted to have a discussion with her in person, or if you're fine with just renewing it. So if it's something you wanna have a discussion with her about possibly non-renewal, we need to do a public hearing. So that I just need to know whether I should have a conversation with her, bring her in.
Well, I do have questions.
I mentioned to Hillary, I'm gonna stand by it. I think, I leave everything be with her. But whatever the board decides, I'll go with the majority of the board.
I mean, I have
I'm on the fact, the question is how much and where was it all located?
Yeah, that's.
But is she gonna come in here and say, oh, this, that, and the other?
But I think the other thing is, who owns the property too?
Right, I mean,
There's a lot of questions.
It is, and, you know, now I think, you know, even Sahan mentioned it, you know, the apartment upstairs is for right now too. And so, I mean, but I think it's, you know, you gotta look at it, it's a town institution. You know, it's, you know, for as long as I've been into Bellingham, I mean, my kids would always walk down there.
Well, it was,
Yeah.
when it was the Luciers,
I see, I've only known Nancy, so.
when it was long, they're a whole different post people, then it was, they were there forever, but. When they did their gardens, everything Luciers.
I think if we're split, I think if it's.
I just think we need to be very sure of what we're doing, and I would rather have my questions answered and be at ease with what I'm doing.
So I would just ask the question whether you could have your questions answered one-on-one with a phone call that's arranged, or to bring them into a public setting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Which you,
I don't care either way, but I think we need to just be careful before we, you know, it's like any other business that we're giving a license to. Gotta make sure everybody's taxes are paid.
proper
Right. Oh,
person,
yeah, we
proper
did.
place.
And make sure that everything is up to date and, you know, that there are no issues before we just hand over the licenses, you know?
I'll back in.
We just want to be sure we're careful, because we give a license out, don't forget, we're the ones who are signing it and giving it.
I'll back in.
So, yeah, so then we're responsible.
Bring her up.
I just bring her in and tell her we have a few questions.
And make her have a
I'm not trying to make an example of her, but I have questions,
Okay,
so.
that's fine. I'm gonna call her, and then this way, if, I don't even know if she is gonna renew or not, so if she is planning on
I've
renewing.
heard all sorts of different
Right,
things.
so if she's planning on renewing, I'll just tell her that the board wants to have a conversation, that's all.
Yeah, just. You know,
So, you know, simple conversation, nothing that's just, you know.
Yeah, we're not accusing her or anything, we just need to know what's what and who's who.
kind of-
Because
maybe
if there
that
was
was-
something to be accused, the police department would
Well,
have
they
done
would have
that.
done it,
Right,
she would have been shut down immediately, so we all know that.
And
Just a couple of quick things. We did receive, as I mentioned in the notes I sent out to you, $50,000 grant for website improvements and Gavin's gonna come in 2 weeks and talk a little bit about that, as well as expanding our social media presence for the municipal center. So I think she's got some good ideas, and I think it's good if she shares them with the board and obviously solicits input from you as well. Library had a boiler that went down. They got 2 boilers that are over 30 years old. They were on the capital list for next year. We've got to move on the one that went down, because the backup one is, if it goes down, we're gonna have nothing for the library. And it's not as simple as calling up Rodenheiser and having them deliver a boiler. It's a major project. Tim's been working with Bernadette on it. We have some available funds. We have some community development money that we'll be able to utilize. We have a little bit of maintenance money. The library has some money, so I think we can piece it together. Tim is working, as I say, with Bernadette. They're doing a little engineering on it. One of the companies, to make sure that, you know, it's properly sized and properly fitted, and then we'll have to go out to bid. So we're going full steam ahead. Unfortunately, it's happening at the start of winter when you can't afford to have the other one go down. Tim, did I miss anything?
No, you're pretty accurate. You know, there's no way of telling, all of a sudden it sprung a leak. So there was no way of knowing that was gonna happen. They were, like Dennis said, they were gonna be scheduled on capital anyway, because they are aging. But we're just, we have no choice now, you know, so one of them can, will help for now, but we definitely have to move forward on getting it, and we're in the middle of that now. So, we'll bring it, I should have something next week. Bernadette has a little something too from the company that was doing the maintenance. But I had another company come in and get it, you know, so we can get it, at least the number fairly accurate, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, we'll also go and update the finance committee and capital as a courtesy, even though we have the funds, so when we go back next year, they won't say, well, how the heck did you do the last one? Do it the same way. You don't need any money, so we'll do that as well. Budget submittals, departments there's gonna be some training next week. We're gonna get those budgets in mid-December. Usually we get the budget to the select board sometime in February. We want to get you a draft budget so that you have weeks to look through it. Departments have some, you know, especially public safety. There's been a lot of development, a lot of warehousing and the runs have only picked up. So we're gonna have to look at public safety. I know there's some interest in adding some additional counseling services out of the senior center. It's overdue. I know Sahan's on the agent committee. I forget the exact name of the committee.
Dementia friendly.
Dementia friendly. So one of the issues we have is we have a grant with Gail Baruso, manages 6 towns, and Bellingham is one of those towns, to assist people with these problems. And it's like a 6-month waiting list right now, just because there's way too much work. So we need to address that, and we'll look to address that in this budget as well. What else? Oh, one thing that Mr. Connor brought to my attention, and rightly so, we have a pole sticking out a newly paved South Main Street at that Center Street intersection. So it's out probably 3 or 4 feet into the street. We couldn't really tell Fafford not to pave because we wanted to get it done before the winter. It's been a mess for a long time. They've got barrels around it. We gotta see what we can do to make sure that that pole is properly protected until the utility company gets there to take it out. So we've had construction projects like this before with the utility companies over the lake and getting them out of there, but we'll be on that. And it's beautifully paved. It's just that there's a telephone pole 4 feet out to the
I
street.
think they got a little more work to fix outside the curbs.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Right. Leaving that we have satisfied our agenda, our next 2 meetings are November 28th to ratify the tax information, and will be followed by a regular meeting on December. Hillary?
Fourth? Yeah.
And currently we were set for 12, 4, 11, and 18, but I don't believe we're going to need the 11th because the enterprise fund information is not going to be available.
Right.
Okay, so we'll leave it out there.
I mean, let's leave it on there just in case.
Yeah. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Some of
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Good night, everyone.